I wrote all these notes brand new last night, and during the night I got scared that when I lecture and when I wake up, I will not be as excited as I was when I wrote these notes. Uh, every time I teach is better than the first time I published these things. Okay, so I prepared the two ideas for you today. Um, the the headlines for the two are innovation and the other one is lifespan. Is that one word in English or two words? One word, lifespan. All right, so these are the two parts. The first one begins with how we said goodbye last time. I showed you how to predict the universal phenomenon called the S curve. Everything that spreads, but also everything that is collected, grows, meaning the area that's on the landscape, or the number of people, the population that buys a product or reads a book or a news item. All those things spread in S-curve fashion. So that would be size versus time, and time is on the abscissa. And we were able to anticipate this S-curve behavior by being clever in the two extremes, the asymptotes again, although I did not call them asymptotes when I thought of it. So that's the early part of the curve, an accelerated growth, and then the second part is a decelerating growth. And the first part was the so-called invasion time. The latter is the consolidation time. And then, of course, all of us have the power to imagine that the curve is continuous, meaning the two portions are spliced to lead to this kind of prediction. This on the back of an envelope. Today, we'll be asking questions about the usefulness of this kind of power to predict. To begin with, for something to spread, I mentioned examples, and I'm not talking about the milk on the kitchen floor, which has the same behavior. The white area, the milk, grows this way. I want you to think about the human realm. The news spreads this way. The new artifacts, say the latest model of the iPhone, spreads this way. If you count the numbers versus time, the citations of a publication. Oh, these days the clicks that a newspaper article receives, those clicks increase in number this way. And the easy is not an explanation, but the easy way to comment on why this thing happens is that whatever is spreading must be useful. So this way, because it is useful, meaning whatever spreads becomes attached, it becomes an artifact, meaning that it becomes attached or attached to or adopted by a person. Each of us is full of these add-ons, really, even if you don't see them. Even the stick of deodorant you use, that is, and of course that's not attached to you, but whatever comes from the stick is attached to you. The point is that none of us is a naked animal. That that kind of picture disappeared a very long time ago. That is the time of the adoption of fire. That was the end of the naked Homo sapiens. And so, yeah, because if it's useful, it's okay, good for you, if or good for everybody who is touched by the new technology. But what about the manufacturer? The manufacturer is in trouble at the plateau end of the curve. So we have two things to learn from this first lesson. The first is the answer to, again, thinking of the seller, from the point of view of the seller, how can we accelerate the spreading? Is there a way to make this S-curve steeper? Here it is in the first enactment, but maybe it can be made to look like that. So this is time, and that's size. And this arrow is indicating the fact that the longer you scratch your head, the steeper the curve. And then another way to get to this next drawing is to be a gadfly and say, Adrian, this is a course on predicting things. To get to this, two arcs S curve, we do not invoke the Constructal law. No, I did not. The Constructal law comes here. To change the, let's call it the behavior, you must have freedom to change the drawing. And the drawing on which this derivation is based, remember the square with the invading, hot blade in invading a territory that was colder? Well, to change it is to, again, use your imagination. There's an infinite number of competing drawings, for example, drawings that are invading not all the way, but partially, and then invading transversely. Meaning that if this is a finger of impact, you have here the distribution of impact in both directions. And of course, you can do even better by continuing this invasion progressively more locally, but it is an invasion, not waiting for the long time act of diffusion, which is called consolidation. And so in the book, this is all this is in the book, The Physics of Life. In chapter 7. I'll come back to this book because this book has a history that makes me laugh every time I think about those days. Publishing is not easy. Publishing, you have to deal with everybody, including the maker of the book and the culture of that particular institution, the experience of the institution, its knowledge of which toes not to step on, and on and on and on. Meaning the author is ignorant compared with how the sausage is made. All right. So I already hinted at the answer. The answer is to replace something that's old, to replace it with something that's new. That's called innovation. Another way to look at the effect of the ability to change and get going is to say that from the point of view of the maker, say the manufacturer, the history of the love affair of Apple with the iPhone does not end with the first model. Here's the first S-curve, and that's design number one. And then soon enough, after what's the name for the department of a company that is in charge of selling the product? Anyway, they figured out, what's the name? There must be here are the inventors, and then at the other end, close to the exit from the factory, are the marketing. That's right, marketing. Yes, there's a department of that in every business school. Those people are very well tooled to detect, not the plateau, but to detect when this inflection point has taken shape. That is then that they know that they have to come up with a new model. And the new model, once launched, provides the company with income that grows according to a new S-curve. And this sort of rhythm continues today. What iPhone has, I forgot, 16 models or something. So this is another way to look at the golden handle of innovation, and why some companies continue to exist. You may think that they are very old and that they haven't changed anything, such as the making of champagne in France. But I don't think that's true. I think every company is going with the flow by making changes. So innovation appears. The movers, in this case, commerce is a movement, that have this ability to come up with something new, are different, meaning their product, but also if they happen to be wearing it, such as a new armor. This is in the Middle Ages, for even today on the battlefront, a new weapon. They are different relative to the surrounding population. And chief example, not as menacing as what I just said, is the evolution of maritime technology. That was both an industry, but before that a subject of scientific inquiry, theory of obviously strength of materials, plates and shells, all sorts of things. Even Euler, famous, he got a prize from the King of France for designing, for figuring out the number of masts to put on the deck of a ship. And so that kind of knowledge made maritime technology develop and spread. And it spread from where it was developed. And it was developed in Western Europe. This is why the movement, the commerce, but especially people, not to mention the pilgrims and other immigrant groups, spread from Europe across oceans. That was the beginning of it. Today, everybody's moving. I'm not talking about today. But the answer to who discovered whom is fairly clear. At the top of the list are Columbus was a singularity with funding from Spain. The Portuguese are the ones who, being small, decided to look bigger by becoming very good at exploring. And then the rest is a history that we live today. This technology wasn't just ships. It was the compass, the telescope, maps. The making of maps is why North and South America are called the Americas. The map maker was Amerigo Vespucci, a map maker from Florence, and he signed his maps with Amerigo, and that's how the name here. I think he's also the man who, on his maps, labeled Venezuela Little Venice. That's what Venezuela means, Little Venice. See that? It's good to be on the map, you know. Yeah. Otherwise, other people slap a totally weird name on your territory. All right. So the punchline, meaning another way to speak innovation is to recognize that this attitude of innovating is not spread uniformly on the globe. Other names for this non-uniform spreading, you actually read in the news today, developed versus underdeveloped, or advanced and less advanced. Being less advanced does not mean being backward in every single way. Europe found out the hard way that the Mongols were much better at warfare on horseback. Much better. I mean, they were impossible to defeat until it became too obvious that they had to be defeated. Same with the Ottoman invasion of Europe. So this is important to keep in mind, that labels are not the difference between white and black. Most recently, the invasion of Europe by the they call it the Soviet army. It was actually the Russian army, was based on this. They had enormous numbers of soldiers and tanks compared with the post-war puny armies of Europe. And you could not do anything against those until history showed that the invaders got sick of invading themselves, you see. That was in around 1990. How does a population become, or territory become more advanced? The same way as in sports. You pay attention to the neighbor who is more advanced and try to learn. Kind of an easy answer. Hard to practice if you are steeped in the attitude of not changing anything. And then to finish this first topic, I ask you to remember two graphs that I put on the blackboard, but also sent you as PDFs. The statistically, relationship between wealth and movement. So that's a GDP. That's wealth, GDP. That's a gross domestic product, a measure of wealth per annum, per year. And on the abscissa, fuel spent per year. And all the countries of the world are showing that wealth is synonymous with movement. Not only that, but all these groups are racing upward because people like life, because movement means life. And I did write at one point the saying that have money will travel. Have money, so have money will travel. Meaning, if you have money, you will travel. That's the saying. There's another line from an author with whom I grew up, Hans Christian Andersen. Who was a huge, very famous author of fairy tales in the middle of the 1800s. And one of his, he also wrote poetry. One of his poems has the line, "To travel is to live." You can Google this line, and you'll get the whole four-line verse. To travel is to live. These are words of wisdom that go with something that may strike you as insipid. The second graph that parroted the first was the fuel per year in all these countries versus freedom. Freedom, that is economic freedom, that's what people have access to plotting. And this corner here means the champion of economic freedom. In this corner reside countries famous for it, such as Hong Kong is now a territory, but anyway, Hong Kong, Switzerland, at the very top, the usual suspects, the US and three others. And then the rest of the world, the same group racing upward toward more movement, which means greater wealth, while saying nothing about the fact that to get up there, a country needs to liberate its flows. This is why education improves pretty much in every country, not at the same rate. Yes.
Freedom is better.
These are rankings.
Oh, rankings. Okay, yeah.
Okay. And then this one is more, just as it was on the left.
Is the freedom like purely economic freedom, sort of, or?
I got a quote for you. Thank you for asking, from Cicero. What then is freedom? And the answer is the power to live as one wishes. Yeah, think about that. Power, what power? Power to make changes. All right, the changes that are good for you. Yeah, this is a matter of attitude. It's if you were, I'm not one of these so-called leaders who tell others what to do. This is why I have this metaphor from team sports. If you want your team to be better, or you as a player to be better, then you have to pay attention to those who are better than you, and learn. And then, of course, it means to start lifting weights is to do things that are difficult as opposed to allowing you to continue to be lazy or living in stupor. And of course, with this sort of sequence of images, you understand very clearly why, to this day, certain let's call them, castles of innovation are prospering. I mentioned Apple, which started from a garage when I was finishing my PhD. I mean, these are nobodies who started the company, all the way to other nobodies, such as Honda. And, of course, many companies in this country that they go without saying, everywhere you look. But keep in mind, the spirit of innovating is not distributed uniformly on the globe. So non-uniformly that it inspires discomfort to those who see that kind of picture. South Korea, for example, right after the Korean War was basically the country is full of cemeteries if you go to visit, and then it became one of the Asian tigers, like overnight. In the 80s, when I was there, I was astonished. Everything was not just clean; it was producing, and total discipline and know-how. Why? Because they put their minds to it to do things better.